Hey, y'all. Just wanted to pop in before the beginning of this episode and let y'all know that before we jump into our holiday movie month, we wanted to give you all a gift. We got the opportunity to record with a wonderful guest, actor, comedian, writer, filmmaker, etc., about one of the movies that she helped direct. So we hope that you enjoy this all and have a happy holidays.
Welcome to Caffeinated Flicks. I'm Celeste.
And I'm Kenzie. We're two chicks who drink coffee
And celebrate flicks from diverse directors.
If you like what you're hearing so far, take a moment to follow us in your favorite podcasting app.
And give us a rating or review. Here's the show.
Today, we have a very special guest, Negin Farsad, who is a phenomenal individual, and we are discussing one of her movies today. Negin Farsad is an Iranian-American Muslim comedian, actor, writer, filmmaker, etc., who's based out of New York City. She is the host of the phenomenal podcast, Fake the Nation, and a frequent guest host of the NPR's Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. She does some comedy tours all over the country as well, so check her website for dates. And then she started her comedy career as a Cornell and Columbia educated policy advisor for the city of New York. So she's got that Ivy League thing going. And she was named one of the 50 funniest women by Huffington Post and named one of the 10 best feminist comedians by Paper Magazine, and was also selected as a TED Fellow, which is incredible. And you can watch her TED Talk on the TED Network. And she was selected for her work in social justice comedy. She's also the author of How to Make White People Laugh.
This is making me sound like I really did some things. And you put it, when you stick it all together like this.
It sounds like you have. Yeah.
When you just put it all in one paragraph, it's just like, wow, she's been busy. Okay.
Not to mention, you've traveled some, from what I understand.
Oh,
I
yes,
you're a giant Francophile, right?
Yes. Listeners of Fake the Nation know I never give up an opportunity to talk about France or speaking French in any way. So...
Yes. And then I always preface this anytime that we have a guest on, like, I'm a giant fan, so I will try not to fangirl, just so you know. So that's part of the reason why I'm like, she's a giant Francophile. Ivy League and so on and so forth. But she has written and directed several movies, including today's Third Street Blackout, and has written for and appeared on Comedy Central, MTV, PBS, IFC, Nickelodeon, and so many others. And are you still doing Bird Girl?
Yeah, it's at HBO Max or whatever Adult Swim show. Yeah, I mean, maybe they haven't. We did 2 seasons, and then it's like there could be a third, so we'll see what happens. Oh, it's just a great field where there's a lot of stability, and you get to know things, in advance. And you never live in fear with questions like, will there be a third season? You know what I mean? So it's just so great to be in this field.
Oh, man. So, Celeste, do you have any questions to kick us off? Because I will stop there because I could probably go on forever.
Oh my gosh, you can continue. My questions were like throughout the film, but Kenzie, continue fangirling. I'm sure everybody loves...
No. I have a question for you guys, which is why did because I thought the funny thing is I thought we were going to talk about a separate film, like a Scorsese movie or something, and I didn't realize we were going to talk about one of my films. And it's funny because I was like, oh my gosh, like, what was that movie even? You know what I mean? Like, I had this moment where it was just like, what it was in that movie that I made? I don't remember. Do you ever like see like a essay you wrote in high school or something, and you just like, it's like in your parents' basement, and you're like, what was this thing I wrote about the French Revolution? What was the French Revolution? What? And like, anyways, that just it's this weird thing that happens to your brain. You just completely forget. It's like someone else made the movie.
Yeah.
I had that moment actually like 2 or 3 days ago because I was a journalist on a school paper while I was doing my master's program. And one of the girls who I went to school with asked me, do you think that some of your stuff is still up on the website? I was like, oh my gosh, I completely forgot I was even a journalist at one point.
Totally.
Couldn't
It's
tell
funny
you.
because it was probably written in this. You could have told, you probably would have known when I was in grad school that I wasn't going to go into the field, because I was in grad school for public policy and African American studies. I got a dual, and but I was at the School of International and Public Affairs at Columbia. They had a newspaper, and it was like a biweekly newspaper. And my friend was the editor, and she was just like, listen, I think there needs to be some comedy in this. Like, can you have like a column that's like a comedy column, and like you could just write fantastical whatever you want? And I was like, and so I wrote these, of course, like, why would I be the one person in that whole program that would write the comedy piece of the thing? You know what I mean? Because obviously I had one foot out the door, like the whole time I was doing stand up at night. I was with very serious people. Like the entire government of Japan would send their people to Columbia to do this program. It was just like, we were with such serious adults. And then I was there being like, you guys, I have to go do stand up. Listen, like, princess, whatever, I have to go to do a set downtown for which I will get paid $7. And then, so whatever this study group is you're all doing, it was very serious. And I just, but it's funny because I saw my friend who was the editor of that newspaper recently, and I was like, I can't even, there's some embarrassing things that I wrote as the comedy columnist for a public policy newspaper of a graduate department. So ridiculous.
Public policy really does just radiate humor. It's just something that you have to laugh at all the time.
Absolutely. That's why all of our great comics have policy degrees.
Oh, exactly. To be fair, I believe, based off of Fake the Nation, it must tie in somehow, though, because you talk about some current events and some political things that are happening. So it's not all for naught.
No. And I don't regret it at all. Like, I think it was, I really wanted to go into politics. I really wanted to go into public service. That was like, those were my dreams. And comedy, unfortunately, like had a stronger pull ultimately. And it's not, I don't discount it. I always think like, oh, maybe one day I'll go back into politics, but we'll see.
If we've got people who are into their 80s in politics, you could definitely retire into politics. I can see that happening.
Yeah, totally. Well, by then I'll look like a baby because they will have figured out so many face modifications. You could just pick like which age group. I'll look like a toddler. I'll want to look like a 2 to 3-year-old. And so when I'm like 70, I'm going to have just the plump, chubbiest cheeks, and I'll look good on the campaign trail.
You'll just get real life Benjamin Button's disease, just start to revert backwards.
No, but on purpose. Yeah. It'll be like you can get Ozempic plus this thing, Benjamin Buttons, in one shot.
It'll be flying off the
what I'll do.
Yep.
It'll be called Benjo. Yeah. That's what it'll be.
Yeah, Benjo. There it is.
Well, so out of curiosity, what got you started in comedy, though? What drew you to it?
Well, I was in high school, and it's interesting because I would say that I was pretty shy up until middle school or something, and then I did a couple of like presentations for California History Day, not to brag, in middle school. Those went over pretty well. It was on the Hubble Space Telescope and just something about astronomy, doesn't matter. And did I mention that I was a finalist at the state level? It's, guys, stop talking about it. It's really, I don't want to, it's like you're making me blush.
Humble brag.
But I remember, but there was like already in me like something about performance and presentation and public speaking and whatever. And then when I went to high school, I got cast in a musical called Once Upon a Mattress. And I was cast. Oh, the lead, you say? No, not the lead, folks. Not the lead. I was cast not as Kitchen Wench number 1 or Kitchen Wench number 2, which would be the top kitchen wenches. I was cast as Kitchen Wench number 3. I was bottom of the barrel kitchen wench. And it really changed the course of my life because I remember doing the part and getting a laugh. Like I had a lot of physical comedy in there, a lot of kind of occasion for improvisation and going rogue. And I did that, and the audience like really went for it. And I just got such big laughs with the very few scenes that I was in. So I remember feeling like, this is amazing. And it is a high, I think, that can't really quite be explained. I bet you some drug user could probably explain the high, but it's probably like heroin or something. I don't know, but I haven't tried. I should try heroin just so I could like really describe this highs accurately. Yeah. But it is, and it also felt very like, I think for like a little tween who didn't have very much power control in the world, it felt like we're quite powerful, I think. And so that probably is what drew me to it, and just like being like funny and like writing funny stuff in high school and stuff like that. And then it just sort of like snowballed from there. When the first thing I did in college was I auditioned and got into a college sketch comedy troupe. And that was like my everything, you know. I still talk to those guys that I was in that sketch comedy troupe with. And it was like the beginning of like a legitimate comedy career.
That's amazing. Now you're here and you have 1,000 accolades. So I think it's
if one is to believe everything they read on the internet.
I don't know. I did some cross-checking. It was the same everywhere. So I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
She's very thorough on her research. So also you directed this movie. What drew you to acting and ultimately directing?
So I started out everything in the late 2000s, mid to late 2000s. And at that time, it's funny because it's not even that long ago, but it was long enough ago that there were really no ethnic people on television. Like it was just not, there was Grey's Anatomy, which has been on television since the beginning of time. But like that, there was that show, and then there was kind of like nothing else that had like ethnic people on it. And it was very, very hard for someone like me to get cast. And so my goal was to be an actor. Like that's what I always wanted to do, but nobody would cast me. And so, and I would even, I've told the story before that like I went into an audition once for the woman who claps in the background of a casino commercial. And I got a call back for that part. So I got called in, and I was like, oh my God, I was so excited. I was like, I'm getting close to booking a part. And I do my call back, and the casting director pulls me aside and she says like, Negin, you're so good at this. And I was like, thank you. Like, I'm like a world-class clapper. I'm not trying to brag, but it is something I've worked on. And she was just like, the problem is like, you're too ethnic for this part. And if we go in that direction, you're not ethnic enough. So I was always in this like ambiguously ethnic. Of course, I was just like, oh, I have some bronzer in my purse. What, maybe I could just throw some on and we'll get rid of that problem.
Oh,
but that was always like an issue, is that I was in a very ambiguously ethnic period, whatever demographic, and it wasn't clear enough for casting directors. It made people feel weird. And it's funny because when I started out comedy, so I started doing stand-up as just like, because sketch was very labor intensive and involved a lot of people, but stand-up was easier to just get up and go and do it because it was just you had to be accountable to yourself. And I had my appetite for doing and performing was so much greater than what I could get by working with other people. So I just started doing it out of necessity. I wrote a solo show. Then people thought I could do stand-up, and people would say to me, oh, can you come and do 10 like at the whatever? And I'd be like, yes, I could do 10. And I know exactly what that means. And I will prepare 10. And so I pretended like I knew what stand-up comedy was because I wrote this solo show that was funny. And then I just converted parts of it to stand-up. And after some time, it just like, that's what happened. I started just getting actual jobs doing stand-up. It was all quite accidental. And then the movie making came out of the same thing, where my very first film is a movie called Nerdcore Rising. And I was dating this guy who was a keyboardist for a nerdcore hip hop band. And I was like, nerdcore hip hop? Like, what the fuck? And he was like, oh yeah, it's a really interesting phenomenon. And I was like, oh, someone should make a movie about it. And then that someone turned out to be me. I made that movie. And again, it was like, there's something about, and there's so much about this industry that has nothing to do with merit or talent or whatever, but there are moments, there's rare moments where you can really pour yourself into something and possibly get recognized for it based on merit. And that was, for me, that was this film. It got into South by Southwest, which is a really premier film festival for someone that has no credits or whatever to get into as a first-time filmmaker. And I was able to sell it, and it opened in theaters and went into Netflix. And the same kind of thing happened with my next movie, The Muslims Are Coming. And that also went into theaters and went on to Netflix. And again, it was like there was an era where you can make these kind of low budget movies, raise the money yourself, like do everything for the film. And so, yeah, and I had never gone to film school. I didn't know how to make a movie. I ended up calling a friend of mine to be like, hey, could you show me like how to use a camera? Like that's how I learned. It was like an afternoon at my buddy's house was film school. And it ended up working out. I wish I had gone to film school. I really am jealous of people who like have that level of knowledge. But there is a boot camp thing that you can do with filmmaking. Because I made a feature before I ever even made a short, and so I finally have made a couple of short films. So don't worry. But it is an odd turn of events. I think a lot of it stemmed from the industry saying, we're not going to hire you as an actor, the thing you want. So figure it out. And I had to know how to earn money, because after I was a policy advisor, I needed to figure out how to earn money. And so I learned how to edit on my own. Again, a buddy sat me down, showed me some stuff. Like I learned so much of it out of necessity to like earn money. And that's just what happened. And then for Third Street Blackout, I thought I was working with a friend, and we were kicking around like, what would be an interesting romantic comedy? I love romantic comedies. Like I grew up in the 80s and 90s, like the real heyday. Yes. Of rom-coms. Yeah. Like John Cusack fucking holding a stereo in front of a window. These are like the just memories of my childhood and my adolescence. And I wanted to make something that made me feel that way. And it's funny. I know people always talk about like going back to those movies and how stalkery they are and all that stuff. And all of that, I just want to say, I recognize. Yeah, I recognize yes. All of the cringe, the racism, and all of it. That said, what fantastic movies. And so, so I really want to make a rom-com. And I had this. So Third Street Blackout is a romantic comedy. It's set in the blackout after Hurricane Sandy that we had in New York City in 2012. And I was here for that hurricane. I was here for the blackout. The blackout lasted 5 days in Manhattan. It was below 40th Street in Manhattan. I lived on 3rd Street. And so we used none of our imagination to title that film. And I had these romantic shenanigans. I was dating a guy. Things were great for a while. He was weird about my stuff, but during the blackout, he realized that he wanted to get really more serious with me. He left notes on my building because the cell phones weren't working. He would leave messages like he would tell like the doorman or something like, oh, can you tell Negin, blah, blah, blah. It was very romantic. And I honestly, if you want to up the game in your romance with your partner, try a blackout. So great.
I don't know if we'll ever
Nothing will bring a couple together.
Yeah.
What?
I
Sorry.
know.
No, you're good. I was going to say, I don't think we'll ever experience one of those in Arizona, but
definitely not a hurricane. One can hope for a blackout of another nature happening in the South.
Maybe we'll get
with
like a
climate change.
Monsoon.
With climate change,
I'm sure it'll
might
probably
literally
be like heat or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
just like a heat related, everything shuts down. Totally.
So don't wish that on us, Celeste. I'm knocking on wood for you.
Yeah, never mind.
Oh, no. Oh, boy. Okay. I was wondering how much of your personal life had gone into this movie. And it seemed so fun, especially since like you've got parts of it that are parallel to your own life as like a TED fellow and
right.
living on 3rd Street, you said, and so on and so forth. So I'm very excited to learn more about it as we go through the notes itself too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the other thing I think, because I am a TED fellow, I was a TED fellow at the time. And the funny thing about it was that the thing I love about rom-coms too in the 80s and 90s is like all the women have like a certain kind of job. Like they're all like publishing assistants or something. And so it's like both the zeitgeisty and a job that you would hear about in New York City. And so I wanted to like update, the idea was kind of like update those jobs to reflect the internet or whatever.
Right.
And so that's how we came up with this woman who's like a scientist, who's also a TED fellow, which is like very like media, like a media savvy scientist person. It felt pretty like what you would see in a movie about a New York City person.
Right. You could no longer just be a columnist anymore. We had to upgrade it to the 2010s.
Exactly. No, you cannot.
Well, cool. So generally what we do is we also ask each other and our guests what you've been caffeinating with today. So I'd love to learn, have you had any caffeine today, Negin? What is your favorite coffee drink, maybe? Feel free.
Can I tell you guys I'm doing the weirdest thing? I have caffeinated today, and it is with just like regular. It was a cup of an Americano with no milk, and normally I do have milk, but I'm not having milk right now because I'm doing this like, this is going to make me sound weird, but it's from my doctor. Okay. It's called the Prolon fast mimicking diet or whatever. It's 5 days, and it's basically supposed to just like reset all your like blood pressure, your cholesterol, your whatever. You're supposed to get your like metabolism going. And this doctor's just like, oh yeah, I do it a couple times a year. It's like a good way to keep your cellular process in a top, which is like, I know words, which is like getting your cells to regenerate or rejuvenate or something. And my husband is like an athlete type person, and like he loves all this biohackery stuff. So when my doctor told me about this, and like she was just like, this is the only thing I would never like tell anyone about a diet fad, but this is like one of those science backed things where there are medical studies or whatever. And sometimes we recommend it for people who want to like reset their cholesterol or blood pressure, whatever. And which I don't actually have. I don't have any of those problems. But I did like the idea of just like a boost, like just some kind of and so I'm on day 2 of this like weird fast where like you eat like olives and like soup and your body thinks that it's fasting. And I feel totally fine. Tomorrow, the next day, who knows? But that's why I am not having milk in my coffee.
So it's a fast without having to fast.
Right. It's like
half a fast.
Exactly. Your body thinks it's fasting because of the way the combination of these olives are, whatever.
Are they special olives?
Yeah, what are these olives?
They're just like literally olives, and they're just like these weird soups. Like, I don't know. But there's something about there's like an oil involved. There's something about the combination that makes your body think like, oh, I'm just like not eating anything. Let me go ahead and repair the whole body now that we're not eating. But you are eating. And it's like
taking the energy that it would use in order to break down whatever you're eating and transferring it to other parts of your body.
Yeah, it's just like, again, just like it's just trying to make me hot and it like make my fucking skin cells pop. Yeah, that's all that's happening.
Like, who needs collagen?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow, science.
What about you, Celeste?
I got myself I am having milk, an oat chai. I am not fasting, unfortunately. So yeah, I got myself an oat milk chai latte.
Nice. Bold flavors.
Did you do a shot in there today or just plain chai?
No, I'm still trying to keep my caffeine to a minimum. So it's just a standard old chai.
Nice. Yeah, I had an iced coffee today. So nothing too fancy. Just feeling the essence of actual coffee these days.
Yeah.
I would love to like quit the stuff, to be honest. But then every 5 minutes there's an article about how it's good for you or something. So
yeah. It reminds me of wine, where people are like, wine is good, wine is not good, wine is good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I feel like I have such a few vices in general. Like I might as well just let myself have this.
Right. I do the same. I'm a vegan. She's a vegetarian. And I'm always like,
oh, geez.
I'm already vegan. Like I have
Yeah.
to have
Yeah.
something.
We can only take out so many
Yeah.
happy moments, happy experiences. Yeah.
Throwing me shade. My God.
Right.
Oh my.
goodness.
Well, shall we get into the movie then, Celeste?
Yes, let's go ahead and do it. Alrighty. So again, Third Street Blackout, getting into the cast, of course, starring yourself. I was very excited to see, I believe, Janine Garofalo, because I was a huge fan of Now and Then,
Me too.
the movie growing up. I loved that movie. So I recognized her. We've got your co-director here also as Rudy, Jeremy Redleaf. So Jeremy, I'm assuming is a friend of yours, right?
Yeah.
Whose idea was it originally to start this movie or to?
I
What was
don't,
that
I don't know. It's a good question. I think it's just like one of those things that just came up because we were working. I think I would hire Jeremy on occasion for some random stuff. I think I had hired him for a voiceover or something like that. And I don't know, we just started chatting and he knew that I had made a couple films. And so by that point I was very comfortable with the idea of like raising the money, making it, you know what I mean? Doing all of that. And I had done, you know, with my second film, I gotten a fair number of like celebrities to like do that movie, The Muslims Are Coming. And so I also felt like fairly confident that I could get some interesting people to join, like Janine Garofalo or John Hodgman or whatever, to like be in the movie. And so, and all of those actors are just like fantastic comedians on the circuit here, like Jordan Carlos and Katie Hartman. So there's a lot of Rachel Feinstein. There's a lot of people in the movie that are just like New York City comics that I knew that I had been on lineups with, like Janine Garofalo, that like I could just ask them like backstage before a show, like, hey, would you do my movie? So it was like that's kind of how it got done. We had a casting director, brilliant casting director, Henry Russell Bergstein, who helped us find some of the other actors. But yeah, it was really like a New York City comedy scene was where we drew a lot of people.
That's so awesome. Especially since it seems like in any industry, sometimes it's who you know and how you can help each other out and leverage each other's talents and so on and so forth. And especially in the comedy scene, like I know that you have Leah Bonnema on Fake the Nation and on your recaps of The Golden Bachelor right now. And luckily we've been lucky enough to have Leah on 2 of our episodes. So it's just really neat how that network works out.
Yeah. She's a really good friend of mine. And it's like, it's funny. We all think of each other. You don't even see it happening really, but you start coming up and you see the same faces and then they become your friends. And then you think, I have this job. There's like this, I'm in a writer's room. There's an opening, blah, blah, blah. Let me see who I can get. And that's like how the pathways start opening up. It's really, and then if you don't get weeded out, because that's what the business is like set to do. The business is set to shove you out of it. Like that's what it wants, but it doesn't. If you don't get weeded out, then you'll eventually make a lot of friends and keep working.
Yeah. That's awesome. Speaking of which, I noticed that Jason Tottenham is in this as well. And if I recall correctly, you two are married. And I was curious whether or not y'all were married during this or if that happened later.
So it's crazy. Like we started dating just a few months before we filmed. And it's funny because people often ask me like, because he has a small part in this movie. And they're sort of like, oh, you gave him like a small part for someone you were like dating. Because we moved in together like right after we filmed this movie. And it was all very fast. And Jason is an incredible actor. Like he's done such big name shows like Homeland and House of Cards and I don't know, Quantico, just like really big shows. And I was like, oh, well, I had basically cast the movie before we really like were serious. And it's weird to like cast someone you're dating like in a bigger role because who knows how that's going to work out. But luckily it did work out. He ended up playing the boyfriend or husband of Rachel Feinstein in the movie, who's this incredible comedian whose specials and stuff you can see, I think on Netflix, maybe HBO. And so it's funny because it's like all these people like you and end up doing such great things. And then Jason, like he does his little bit part of my movie, goes on to do like really big shows. But yeah, we got married. Awesome. Me and that guy got married. Nah, by the way, and he is not the man that is the subject of the story. So that man, I did not marry that man.
Okay.
You're like, I wrote an entire movie about you, but
but
that is the legacy.
Yeah. It was and nothing against that guy. That guy he was a fun guy to date for the time that we dated. But yeah, he was not someone I could marry.
As long as you know that, man.
Amazing. So amongst the rest of the cast, we've got Ed Weeks, love the Mindy Kaling show. Phyllis,
so good.
Love, right?
We've got Somerville, so great.
Somerville. She has, side note, she has the most beautiful, contagious smile, that woman.
Yeah, and she's one of those actors who's been working in New York City for a long time on Broadway and stuff like that, and she just hadn't been discovered for film and television until late in life. So it's like a lot of her credits that if you've seen her on Outlander and stuff like that, she was discovered like later in life. I discovered her by watching this show on Showtime called The Big C with Laura Linney, and she was so fantastic in that show. And the best compliment she ever gave me was like, the relationship that you and I have in this movie is like the relationship I had with Laura Linney on The Big C, and it's really I feel fondly for both of these relationships, and I was like, oh, that's really wonderful because Laura Linney's like such a master. So yeah, so it was great to be able to work with her.
Awesome. So we've also got Jordan Carlos, we've got Katie Hartman. Sunita Mani, loved her in Glow also.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yep. We've got Emma Ramos, John Hodgman, Rachel Feinstein, as you've mentioned, and of course your husband, Jason, in that tiny, tiny part. Should we go ahead and get into the recap, Kenzie?
Let's do it.
Unless you had any other questions. Awesome. All right. So we're in modern day New York. Mina and Rudy have decided to move in together. They are the very quirky, adorable couple. And so we flash to the middle of the blackout, and they seem to be having a lover's quarrel. And then we flash again to before the blackout, and Mina, who is a neuroscientist, is about to do a TED Talk on optogenetics, and she's wigging out a bit beforehand. It seems like she's got some stage fright, or I think she mentions that the man beforehand, he's got, what did he say, Kenzie?
He's talking about gay autistic babies or something of that nature.
Yeah, something of that nature. So he's got like the crowd is like moved by him. Yeah, he's got the crowd. She's like, how am I supposed to follow that up? So I wanted to know, because you did your own TED Talk. Did you have a similar experience beforehand?
It's funny because that scene is with Sashir Zamata, who then ends up on SNL. And it's the thing with being a TED Fellow. So I was a TED Fellow as a comedian. It was largely because I made the movie The Muslims Are Coming, and I was always like a little bit of the odd person out, because the other TED Fellows were all like these crazy scientists who had built molecular thingamajigs and like figured out diseases and like would fucking grow coral reefs from like discarded erasers. You know what I mean? Just like crazy shit that you can't wrap your mind around. And I remember just being like, God, I'm just the idiot here. That's like the court jester, which is fine. I was very happy in that role. And I always felt like really in awe of the cohort of people that I got to be around as a TED Fellow. And that is very much the feeling that you get. People just with really, really obscene credentials in fields that you can barely understand. And that's like who I was rolling with on the TED scene. And so this was very much like that feeling.
That is great. I also noticed that throughout, like, this is the first time that we hear it, but then also later on in the movie, the character is helping her mic up. She calls her ma'am, and she's like, don't call me ma'am. Nobody's a ma'am until they're like 75 years old.
Yeah.
And I love that because I always feel so weird whenever somebody calls me ma'am. And I'm like, I don't know what to do about that.
I know. I feel like you need to have like visible goiters in order to be called ma'am. You know what I mean? It's aggressive to like, I find like it's like aggressive to a 55-year-old. I can't. It needs to be, it's just like much older.
I'd rather somebody just yell lady at me. I'm just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. I'll take a
ma'am.
hey you over a ma'am.
Any day. Absolutely.
I don't care if we do like sloth. Hey, you guys. Like, I'm in. Just don't call me ma'am.
Agreed.
Oh, man. Alrighty. So then we're introduced to Rudy's character, and him and his buddies are currently doing a hackathon, which they happen to win. And then we move on to Mina, who meets Nathan, who's introduced to Nathan. He's an investor at what seems like a networking event. And Nathan is a very handsome, very English man. Yes.
Which he's handsome, I think, in all of his parts, but yeah. And Ed's such a funny guy. It's accidental that he's handsome. He's
It
like
just adds.
He's like primarily to me a funny guy who, and it's just like, oh, you're also handsome. That's weird, but yeah, it's just like this.
I guess we can use that.
Right. It's just like this freakish thing that happened to him.
I think also because he is British English. For me personally, that always adds like 10 points.
Yeah, for
Anytime that you've got an
sure.
accent, it adds like 10 points. I don't care which accent it is. It's just there.
Yeah,
It's the charm.
Yeah.
Yep.
totally.
So then we flash to 3 months earlier, where Mina shares that she received a TED Fellowship. And in this moment, Rudy seems a little less than thrilled. And it's because I guess he feels as though he hasn't really advanced as much as Mina in his career field. Words. And so that was a bit of a downer there. I felt like that was a bit of a sad moment for sure, because she was sharing this big, exciting news, and he wasn't really there to celebrate it with her. So that was.
And that is again ripped from real life, because that the guy who was the subject of this, who inspired this movie, is not like really that guy, but we had a conversation like that where he was like, I guess I'll just be stuck at my dumb job or whatever. He said something like very silly, like in response to something that should have been more like, oh my God, congratulations. You know what I mean?
Right.
He took it personally that I was advancing in my career. And I was like, oh, I don't think we're going to end up getting too far, buddy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was one of the signs.
Yeah.
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 Mhm. You just need to come up with some fake, really good news and see what your partner reacts
Right.
like. And that's going to be your test.
Oh,
That's
it's
going to be
a
your
great
red light
test.
test.
It's
Right
a
from the
great test.
beginning.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like, I got invited to Geneva. Like,
Yeah. Totally.
Oh my gosh. So then we meet Susan, her neighbor, for very briefly. And Susan is a very ballsy woman because she's got her full name on the door.
I love her. I want to be her. That's what I aspire to.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm her age. When I can qualify as a ma'am, that is what I aspire to.
Yeah.
Susan is the ma'am. Yep. So then the hurricane hits and the blackout hits. And so there's a sort of like this little rap battle that you guys do when the blackout hits. Is that something you guys really do? Or do you guys do little
so
raps?
the interesting is like me and that guy did a lot of like improvisational. I always have a piano in my apartment, and we did a lot of like improvisational, like singing and random like rapping and whatever. And Jeremy's into that stuff as well. And so it turned into, when I was talking about like having done this during the blackout, again, like talk about like ramping up your kind of like fucking cuteness. It's like that's the kind of shit we did during this blackout, is like we would turn on candles and like sing songs to each other. Like it was so dumb. but so cute. It just felt like straight rom-com material. So I had to put it
totally.
in there.
Yes.
Absolutely. I love it.
Oh, goodness. So the two head downstairs where we meet the chill master, who happens to be the block's DJ.
Real
he is.
DJ, is that what you said?
Yeah, so the chill master, and he still lives on 3rd Street, and he still blasts music out of his window, a curated playlist on certain days of the week, certain weekend days and stuff like that. He'll have music going, and he's actually in the movie, more like an extra. We cast someone to play him, but he's in the movie because he's a real guy.
That's so cool.
That's amazing.
He's actually quite well known in the neighborhood. Like there's an East Village kind of blog called Evie Grieve that like has regularly written about this man. And so I was just lucky enough to be his neighbor and for him to be my bud. So it was and again, these are the things like I'm all you Mackenzie. I talk about New York City all the time on Fake the Nation, but these are the reasons why I love New York City, because these are the people that they're not made up. These are just like the real people that you like end up engaging with on a daily basis in the city.
I was going to say, yeah, these characters, like, I feel like you can't make them up. I feel like these are people that you probably engage with on a daily basis. That's so
totally
cool.
And I think being in New York, you're so much closer to so many people. Whereas like here in Arizona, like there's so much land between everybody. And so you only meet people in random ways, not so much by walking down the street or having your regular routine per se. So that's so neat.
Right.
That you get to meet so many interesting
You're not seeing
people
people's weirdness like up close and personal as much. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, I was going to point that out too, because it seems like Rudy knows everybody. Like he's like the guy at the, is it a bodega? Is that what it's considered?
Bodega.
Okay, good. I was very excited. So, like, he knows the guy there. Me too. And so I'm like, this guy just knows everybody. So it seems to be like a New York City, like, norm for you guys to, like, interact and just befriend everybody in the area. Because, that I don't even know my neighbors, hardly.
Right.
Other than the fact that they've got chickens or peacocks or
quails.
Some loud quails. They've got
quails
loud
and
birds
chickens
in their backyard.
In our desert backyard. Yeah.
Well, quails
cool.
make
That's
sense.
cool.
Chickens, I don't know. But
they got a little bit of everything. Yeah. Oh, goodness. So everyone goes to a bridge because everyone's got to get connected. So there happens to be cell service there. And there's just a line of people hooked up to their devices.
I love the comment that you make. Like, does it actually make the signal better if you put it up in the sky? Rudy's just like, I don't think so.
Such a weird human instinct to do that. Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So Mina's very excited about all of her new followers that she's obtained, where we happen to see that Nathan's a follower of hers and Rudy sees a picture of them. He's a little handsy. And it's about the photo of Nathan, where she tells him that he's gay, aka then I think
Gathan.
Gathan.
Oh no, he's super gay. Don't worry about it. I swear. And he's like, "What made you think that?" And he's like, "Oh, well, he was handsy." And he's
but
like,
just the way he was all over
like
me.
A straight guy would be handsy.
I feel like even for a gay guy, that would be a bit weird.
A bit much. A bit much. Yeah.
I mean, if you're doing like a chest bump or something like that, where it's obviously a shimmy chest bump, then that's very gay. But being handsy, I'm not so sure.
Right.
So they hit up a bar and everything only warm because, of course, there's a blackout. So they hit that bar up. And you can tell that Mina is attempting to tell him something important. And this is when we start getting a few flashbacks to the networking event with Nathan. And he decides to tell her that he is going to fund the next phase of her research. So it's very exciting. And they decide to celebrate with some drinks.
Lots of shots.
Lots of shots. All the shots. And then we flash back. Oh, yeah. And then we flash back forward to day 2 of the blackout, and they decide to host a party specifically to get rid of all like the spoiled food. which is a good idea.
Blackout rotting food party.
Blackout rotting food party.
Which
yes.
was a thing. People like literally needed to get rid of their food. And
Makes
so
sense.
there was a lot
Yeah.
of that going on. Absolutely. People handing out ice cream. The bars would be open. They would just be handing out like lukewarm beer and like just like, they were just like, let's get it done, guys. We got to get rid of this stuff.
Right.
Nice.
There's nothing worse than when your fridge goes out and
Oh,
everything
yeah.
starts to go bad.
Yeah.
And you're like, how do
Yeah.
I consume all of this within the next 3 hours?
Yeah.
All right. I did
Yeah.
not do my stomach exercises, but let's do this.
But that's nice there that everybody can just like open up their doors to their neighbors and be like, hey guys, come to my place, eat my food and drink so it doesn't go bad.
Yeah.
Love that community. And let's see. So at the party, one of their friends asks so she's sharing the great news about the fellowship and the funding. And one of their friends asks, who did you have to sleep with to make all this happen? And she has like a little panic look on her face. And so we get a flashback to the night with Nathan. Let's see. And so she goes to his room and then we flash forward. So we're getting flashbacks and forth leading up to the moment. And the night of the party, Nathan has the audacity to show up. And so
He
it's
has
very
found her.
awkward. Yeah, he did. I want to know how.
Same.
Now
I was
that
just
I think
thinking
about it, how did he find
How did
her
he get
address?
Did I not? I probably had like some kind of a reason of how, but I don't
Yeah.
remember. But he does figure it out. Yeah. Yeah.
He comes back with a napkin that is his
the contract.
contract saying
Yeah.
Tuesday. Remember Tuesday.
Yeah. That's true. That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Just walking around with this napkin.
Yeah. Oh man. So then we flash back we're flashing back to the night with Nathan. And at the party, Rudy tries, because Mina told him that he was gay, he tries setting him up with one of their gay friends, and where they ultimately discover that he is not gay. And to end the night,
I love that in order to
Okay.
indicate that he was gay, Rudy just put his 2 index fingers pointing to each other.
Yeah.
And then later on, that same guy was like, by the way, this is not how we do it.
yeah. Oh no. Love that.
Andrew,
so
that
just-
actor's name, by the way, the gay setup was Andrew Madsen, who's just like impossibly good looking and just like always looks like that. He's just always like this handsome. It happens to be gay, so that worked out. But yeah,
So you knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
he knew what he was talking about. We were like, "Is this?" We just want to make sure. Is this how you guys do it? No, it's not how you do it. Okay.
No, okay.
You don't do sword fighting? Like, I'm
You
very
don't
confused.
do peens touching. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh no. So to end the night in celebration, they do salsa back shots. So I just want to know, did you guys actually take those shots?
No,
Okay, good.
we are not method. No
Okay.
one there was method. We were all a
You're like,
bunch
we
of
are not
dirtbag
that
comedians who were
hardcore.
just acting. Yeah.
I was about to say, that
Yeah.
sounds
I was sitting there, I was like-
extremely disgusting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
like half of a Bloody Mary,
Yeah.
but in a shot.
A chunky
Yeah.
Bloody Mary.
There was a
Yeah.
time where everybody was doing like picklebacks and all this shit. Like it was like very popular to like have a weird something back
Mm-hmm.
in
Yeah.
that era. So that was just our silly like take on it.
Gotcha. I thought you didn't
I
want
love
like the
that.
salsa to go bad. And it was just a way to get rid
I
of
think, yeah, that was also part of it. Yeah.
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 Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
boy.
Oh man, oh man. So at the end of the night, Rudy confronts Mina about Nathan, and he basically draws his own conclusions and runs off to his friend's place, very upset. And let's see. And Mina wakes up to another day of a blackout and no Rudy, unfortunately. And Rudy hires a boy named Chuck, who is hilarious in this movie.
So good.
On a
He's
scooter.
so good.
A scooter or like a bike of some sort. Yeah, he's putting in
Yeah.
the work that day.
He's making the money for it too. I tell you what.
Right? So are those real? And was that something that like I don't know if you mentioned it earlier. Like people would
No, so that
see.
one wasn't real.
Okay.
There was a lot of like note passages, but I never paid anyone to get a note from one place to
Okay.
another. But this, yeah. So this was made up, but it was,
Okay.
but it felt like it could happen. You know?
It did. It seemed like something
Definitely.
legit. Yeah.
Especially when you've got entrepreneurial child who's like, I gotta make
Right.
my money any way
Right.
I can. Let's
Yep.
do this.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. So Chuck turns into their personal messenger for the day, passing notes back and forth amidst the blackout between the two. And Mina visits her neighbor, Susan, who, poor thing, is out of insulin. So she has made it her mission to obtain the insulin for Susan. Oops, sorry. Lost myself. Alrighty. So Mina and Susan get to know each other. It didn't seem like they were very close, but they learn things about each other and kind of like start to seem to be forming like a bond. So it's very sweet. Meanwhile, Rudy and his friends are getting plastered at a bar. He goes off on a couple during that scene. So there's a couple kind of getting an adorable couple on the side. And he's like, is this official or what is it? Is this monogamous? I need official.
I need proof.
I need proof. Yes. If this isn't a monogamous relationship.
Status. Like, do you know his birthday?
I sensed hesitation. So yeah, he's kind of.
And then as soon as they leave, she's like, by the way, we need to talk.
Yeah. Oh no. So we're at blackout day 4. Susan gets Mina to pull herself together to go and fight for her boo. And Rudy's friend.
This is like the classic rom-com. Like now someone has to
Yeah.
fight for someone because she smooched another dude and she has to go figure out how to get forgiveness.
She's got to get him back. Yep. So my favorite is Rudy's friends convince him to confront Nathan. Meanwhile,
Sorry, I'm just remembering and giggling.
yeah, I love it because he's like, yeah, because I think they find his card and they're like, well, where does he live? And he's like, I don't know where he lives. And they're like, dude, you're a hacker. Like, how can
Yeah, figure it out.
figure it out? Exactly.
You're not a real hacker if you don't know where he lives.
Yep. So Susan takes Mina to Brooklyn to find Rudy, and she's like, you got to try everything. They put up missing flyers for him. They scream
That
his
say
name in
missing,
the
but they don't have
streets.
like a contact. Like this just says this guy's missing. He's got strawberry blonde hair.
Can you just return him to me, please? Yeah.
was a great drawing.
I think like the idea was not necessarily that someone would help her, just that like he would see them and feel moved. You know?
See her metaphorical boombox over the shoulders.
Boombox. Yes, exactly. That was the boombox being held over the head. Yeah.
Oh man. And they also try screaming his name. They end up starting like a chant in the street. Just
From the movie Rudy.
Yep. The Sean Astin movie, which I ended up Googling. I'm like,
Oh my God, you've
You
never
didn't
seen
know
Rudy?
that?
It's a classic.
He was a
Oh my God, you guys need to
football
recap
player at Notre
it.
Dame.
Yeah.
It's a classic.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to get to that one. Oh man. So Rudy locates he finally locates Nathan's address. He heads over and he discovers that they just kissed for a second and that she's the one that stopped it. And I love how Nathan's like, yeah, it's weird. I've kissed siblings for longer than that. And everybody's like, it's not normal, sir.
He's like, this is my usual move. I
Yeah.
usually try and find somebody to bang. However, she wasn't into it. So.
Yeah.
And then he punches him in the earlobe.
in the earlobe.
In
yeah.
the earlobe.
And they're very proud, man.
Yeah.
He's so excited.
They run off.
And yet so scared.
chanting. Yeah. They run off, but yeah, they're so excited. This was a win for him.
Yeah, exactly. Because like that guy has never punched anyone in anything, so to get a punch in
yeah.
the earlobe is quite a feat.
Yeah, it is.
The fact that he even just made contact with
Yeah.
some skin
Yeah, exactly.
was all he needed in life.
Right? Oh, man. So Mina gets some folks together from the building for Susan's card night. They have a grand old time. And she returns to her apartment to find Rudy. She does this presentation for him about neurons and uses it to explain her actions in a really cute way, a cute scientific way. and she ends up apologizing. And
This
right
is her
at that
Love Actually moment with the,
Yes.
Her Love
the
Actually
cue
moment.
cards.
That's right.
with
The cards.
cute
Yep.
presentation cards. Yes.
Uh,
Was that actually the inspiration?
I mean,
the
you
Love
can't.
Actually.
It's funny because what was it? I can't remember, but it had to have been a Love Actually homage moment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's partially love. It's so the idea was that it was like they couldn't do a TED. That she would have done a TED talk
Mhm.
with a PowerPoint presentation, but she couldn't do that because it was a blackout. So
Yeah.
the idea was that
yeah.
to use that to do a TED talk, but like on paper. But it is very much like Love Actually homage at the same time.
Yeah. I do love how she begins it too. And she's like, thank you all for being here. You all are a beautiful audience. This is what you say to make sure that you can engage with the audience.
Yes.
Oh, that was some real acting on my part because I already know what you say to engage with them.
Yeah.
That's where you guys could tell that it wasn't really me playing me.
Oh, man. So she ultimately apologizes. And then right at that moment, the power comes back on. Rudy pulls out the flyer that he found. He's like, you gave me a mohawk or
A faux hawk.
Yeah.
a faux hawk.
You really think
yeah.
I look like this?
Yeah, and they appear to make up. So right before like he goes into what looks like he's about to kiss her, it cuts to the end. And was that intentional or did you not
Yeah,
want it
because
to
we
end?
did a version where they do kiss and then we just felt like it was nicer to like keep it a little bit ambiguous and just like I think you do feel like they're gonna kiss and it's hopeful and it's good. But we just didn't want to spell things out for the audience too much. Like let them have an imagination about what may have transpired. Maybe they're hardcore fucking. You know what I mean? And maybe it's so too super.
Maybe they're just
salacious.
doing
Maybe he just
yoga.
grabbed
Who
her
knows?
and
Uh.
Yeah, maybe they start an OnlyFans page together. We don't know. Beyond that moment, we don't really know. Something
Right.
transpires.
Up to
I
our
love it.
imagination. Love it.
Yeah. Really just lean in and let your mind go wherever.
Yeah. Awesome. So we cut and the end.
The end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
and
my
we have
goodness.
these like what again, like it's so funny that to hear you recap the movie because I don't like honestly remember everything.
Oh,
And-
yeah.
But I was just like, oh man, like, did we follow the beats of a rom-com? Like, we just followed the beats of a rom-com. It's like I watched 100 rom-coms, wrote down the structure exactly, and then just copied, which is fun. That was like truly my intention was to try and do something in the classic rom-com style. And so yeah, it's fun where you're like, oh, a kind of miscommunication gets in the way and
Mhm.
some like they're not even giving each other enough time to like work out what happens. There's tensions flare, people run away, and it's like this is dramatic behavior, which is funny because I think like the guy that I dated, that guy was more dramatic than I like. My husband is not the kind of guy that'll like let a miscommunication go for days. Like he'll just be like, so can you just like clearly explain to me what happened? And then it's like, then there's no movie. You know what I mean? But that guy was the kind of guy that would just like would flare up and just like having a dramatic moment.
Make an assumption.
So yeah, I was like, oh, you're the reason why romantic comedies are possible. Because if everybody was rational and just like having like a full conversation with each other, then the fucking rom-coms wouldn't exist.
Well, and then of course you also have to have the big gesture too, whether it's proposing, the marriage, saying I'm sorry, so on and so forth too. So we have that as well in here.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. So
I will say, I also,
go ahead.
sorry.
No,
I was just going to say, I also love the like color palette throughout the movie too. Like when you guys are texting back and forth or when there's any kind of text out on the screen, there's a lot of fun colors and it's very poppy that you don't see most of the time. Most of the time it's very boring. It's very, here's what a text message looks like. But this was very fun and animated.
Yeah. Thank you. That was really intentional. We really wanted the movie to feel colorful and vibrant. And we were working with a small budget, but you can do so much with a small budget. It doesn't have to feel like boring. And it doesn't, and I think a lot of times people will choose like more neutral color schemes and stuff like that because they're just easier to pull off and there's less risky or something. But like, yeah. And the other thing is like, we got some really incredible footage from actual filmmakers who were filming in this. So some of the footage we filmed, we would just go out on the streets of New York, and then we would take it to a graphics person, and they would take out the light from each scene. So it looked like we were shooting in a blackout. But some of the footage we got from a filmmaker who spent time, he would just take his camera out during the blackout and just like capture streetscapes. And we licensed some of his footage because it was just so beautiful. You never ever see New York that dark.
Mm-hmm.
And to like be able to see things like that was really remarkable.
That is so cool.
I know.
I'm so glad that we get to learn a little bit of the back end stuff.
I know.
Yeah. I don't know. Like movies are like, there's 1,000 moving parts, and they're so like difficult to pull off. But like, it is so interesting to see like how it is. People like, I'm always shocked and surprised. And then Gabi Alter, who wrote the theme music for Fake the Nation, who was in a nerdcore hip hop band, who was in my first film. We've worked together now for like 1,000,000 years, and he wrote most of the score for this movie. And I think the music plays such a big role in the movie. There's a lot of score in the film, and like I would just say to him, I don't know, it's like Tune Yards meets Passion Pit. Go. And like he would figure it out, and it was like really incredible, like to be able to work with people like that. And Andrew Mendelsohn, who later went on to make movies for people like Andrew Drecke, but also like he was the editor for Samantha Bee's Full Frontal, and he's just had this like glittering career both as a documentary film editor and a comedy editor. And being a comedy editor is so difficult. So I don't know, between all of those guys, Jeremy and Andrew Mendelsohn and Gabi Alter, and we just had such incredible people like working on the movie.
So cool. So what was, I don't know if you recall, but what was the like official timeline from when you guys first started, I guess, with the idea to final cut?
Well, this was pretty short, honestly. Like I remember having a conversation. It was like probably January, and we filmed in June. So it was the scripting and stuff like that probably took a month or 2 months, and then from then on it was just like raising money and getting people, and that it was actually one of the and then the editing took another like 4 or 5 months after. So this was like one of the fastest projects I've ever done was this movie.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, because you hear like
I had cut my teeth on documentary filmmaking, and that will break your soul for years. You know what I mean? It is not fast. It cannot be fast. It's so fucking slow. It's so laborious. It's the most labor intensive form of filmmaking. Wow. And this was so much more controlled. And so, yeah.
Yeah, because I was about to say, you hear like other films, they're like, oh, this was like 5-6 years in the making. So to hear that this was like very like quick and abrupt for you. So for you.
This was fast. Yeah. So great. Yeah. And like if that is it's like I can't make Lord of the Rings in fucking 9 months or whatever, but like I can make a romantic comedy in 9 months. Like a person can.
You know what's funny is I literally was just thinking about Lord of the Rings. And I was like, they did all 3 in the same sequence, but it took so long. I know
that's not normal. Yeah, because normally they'll do one movie and then work on another one, but the fact that they did all 3 like just in one crunch.
It's hard. It's crazy. The amount of logistics involved in that. I can't even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We had a gentleman on, Tim Williams, who was an animal handler, and he worked on the Chronicles of Narnia, and he was explaining about what it takes to do a film in New Zealand. And so we were just wowed away by that. But,
such a lengthy process.
That's a little Lord of the Rings process.
So we like to check if a movie passes the Bechdel test, which yours fortunately does. Yeah.
Amazing.
Even as a rom-com, because most of the time rom-coms don't pass Bechdel tests, and yours did. So that was very exciting.
Yay.
But yeah, I think this was a really, really fun movie. And I'm so glad that we got to talk to you about it and get to learn a little bit more about the behind
thanks,
the scenes
guys.
from it.
Yeah, this was really fun. It was like a really fun trip down memory lane for myself, and I really and it's available on Peacock if anyone has that, and also you can download it on all of the places, Amazon and whatever. So hopefully you'll check it out. It's a little interesting, weird, like capsule of time in New York City.
And if you want, anytime, you're welcome back if that is something you're up for.
Oh,
And we'll
thank
talk
you.
about
Yeah. Well, I
different
love
movie
movies.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll focus on your husband instead and just do one of his movies. And talk
Yeah.
that down.
And then we
Totally. Thanks, guys. This was awesome.
Yeah, it's such an honor.
Awesome.
I know. Thank you so much. It's
Yeah.
like Kenzie said, to be able to get like the other perspective from the creator side, as opposed to just like as a viewer, is such a treat. And it's so cool. And it's so awesome to learn about all the little tidbits that goes behind the scenes, because there is so much that goes into movies beyond directors,
So much.
actors, so much. It's such a like collaborative experience too, and so awesome to be able to hear about and learn about. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Thanks so much.
So before you leave, is there anything that you'd like to plug or share out with individuals?
You know, I don't know when this podcast comes out, but I'm a regular on Wait, Don't Tell Me, so you can tune into that. I'm going to be guest hosting December 7th, and I'm going to be at Carnegie Hall on December 15th. And you can listen to my podcast, Fake the Nation. But mostly, I would really love for people to read an article that's dropping on December 4th for Afar magazine. It's about a psilocybin retreat in Jamaica that I went to on assignment. So you can read about me tripping balls for the sake of a gig. So
And
check
that's
that out.
mushroom.
I really poured mushrooms. I poured my heart and soul into this piece, and I think people will connect with it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much again. Like I said, giant fan over here. So I'm just so honored that you took the time to speak with us and tell us about your movie and your artwork.
No,
in
I'm
general.
so honored that you had me, you guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Caffeinated Flicks. We're a self-published podcast produced and edited by Kenzie. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what films you'd like us to cover, what we can do better, or just say hi. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can follow us on Instagram at caffeinatedflixpod or email us at caffeinatedflix@gmail.com. We'll catch you on the flick side.